Have you ever felt like life is just too full, but not necessarily in the best way? Like everywhere you turn, there's something pulling at you, a mess to clean, a notification to check, a commitment that you are already regretting, or just struggling to keep up. I have been there, and the truth is that clutter doesn't just live in our homes. It sneaks into our days, our minds, our relationships, and even our faith. So in today's video, I want to walk with you through what it looks like to declutter your entire life, and not in a perfect minimalist kind of way, but just in a realistic mom life and grace-filled kind of way. We're going to break it down into simple, doable parts because life doesn't need to be perfect to feel peaceful. It just needs a little bit of space, and it took me a while to learn that. And so I'm here just trying to share what I've learned along the way, hoping that maybe it'll click for you a little bit sooner than it did for me. So let's start with our home, because our homes are often the first place where clutter shows up, and it's the easiest place to begin because it's visible, it's physical, and when we deal with it, we start to feel a shift almost immediately. And so that's why our physical clutter is often the easiest, most common place to start. But later you'll see that we're going to get into like the clutter that sneaks up into our entire lives. But with the home, when you can see physical progress, it's just an immediate relief in a world that feels overwhelming. And so that's why it's an easy win and the best place to start. When I first began this journey, I wasn't really looking to declutter my whole life. I just wanted the house to stop feeling so overwhelming and chaotic. I was constantly cleaning, but it just never felt like I was done. And it was like I was just moving stuff from one room to another, and laundry baskets were full. Laundry was never ending. Toys were everywhere. Papers were stacked, and no matter how hard I tried to clean up, it just was never enough. So I just decided to start with one drawer, just one, and it was small, a kitchen drawer that had everything from rubber bands to pins that didn't work, old batteries. And so I gave myself 15 minutes, no pressure, and just put everything out. I wiped it clean, and I only put back what I thought actually made sense to be there. And when I closed the drawer, something just immediately shifted. For the first time in a long time, I finished something, and it felt like a win. That tiny little drawer, of course, gave me momentum. So the next day, I did the utensil drawer, I did a pantry shelf, I did like on top of the fridge, I did all the nooks and crannies. I didn't try to just do like a whole room at once. I just kept asking myself, what can I clear away today that will make tomorrow a little bit lighter? Some days it was a pile of mail, other days it was a kitchen cabinet, but day by day, the visual noise started to quiet. I realized I had been keeping so many things just in case. We all do that, right? Mugs we don't use, containers were missing lids, kitchen gadgets I forgot that I even owned, and every item that I let go of felt like a breath of fresh air. I wasn't just clearing space, but making room for peace. My kitchen counter stayed cleared longer, my mornings were smoother, cooking dinner was a lot easier, and I could find things when I needed them. So I went and just continued moving through the entire home, not just the kitchen. And as I did so, I made sure that I didn't necessarily follow a strict system because that can be discouraging, but I did follow a few guiding questions. Do I use this regularly? Does this make our life easier or harder? Am I keeping this out of guilt, fear, obligation? Would I buy it again today if I saw it in the store? Would it be super expensive to replace? These are the type of questions that help me separate what was actually helping our home function and what was just simply taking up unnecessary space. I also stopped waiting for the perfect time. I didn't wait for nap time or a weekend. Sometimes I did it with my baby on my hip. If I had 10 minutes while dinner was in the oven, I would tackle one drawer. It didn't have to be an all or nothing type of thing, and it doesn't have to be that for you either. Another huge turning point is realizing that we do not need more organizing bins, but we need less stuff. Decluttering must come before organizing, always. Otherwise, you're just rearranging clutter and calling it progress. And I learned that the hard way. Once I let go of the excess, I didn't need to buy a fancy system because simplicity became the system. And let me just say, decluttering your home isn't about impressing anyone. So if that's your goal, I don't know if it's gonna truly stick, but More so, focus on creating a space that supports the kind of life you actually want to live so that it can become a lifestyle. For me, it was a home where I could just sit down without feeling behind. One where my kids had room to play, one where we had space to breathe, we could move around and just enjoy each other's company, and not in a messy home. So if your house just feels like too much right now, just start small. One drawer, one basket, one corner. And if it takes you weeks or even months to work through your spaces, that is okay, because it took me some time too, and it should, because we didn't just create our clutter overnight. So just know that you're not behind. You're building something beautiful, just one step at a time. So now let's talk about the kind of clutter that we can't actually see, the mental clutter. If you're a mom like me, then chances are you carry 1,000 things in your head at once. The grocery list, your child's next dentist appointment, remembering to call a friend back, or just that one thing that you meant to do last Tuesday but didn't. It's nonstop. And I remember feeling so frustrated when I'd finally get the house somewhat tidied, and yet I would just still feel overwhelmed. And it's because even when the physical clutter was gone, my mind was still cluttered. And honestly, that was the harder part to deal with, because nobody sees it. There's no before and after photo, no physical, tangible result for the weight that we carry in our minds. So one thing that helps is a brain dump. It's nothing fancy, just sitting down with a notebook. I have my notebook right here, and just writing out everything that takes up space in your head. Tasks, worries, reminders, guilt, things that you're overthinking, all of it. You don't have to organize it yet, but just get it out, because you'll be surprised that some of what you write down probably isn't actually as important as it feels in our mind. For me, a lot of it just wasn't even mine to carry, or it was just based in fear and not true. After I did this and got everything out of my head and onto paper and looked at it, I was like, no wonder I feel so tired all of the time. It was like my brain was running 40 apps at once, and none of them were getting closed, just like a ton of tabs open. Just seeing it all helped me to breathe more, and from there I could finally start to categorize what was urgent, what was a priority, and what could wait, and what I could just let go of entirely, and those were the best ones. Something else I had to declutter was the constant multitasking. We wear it like a badge of honor. I used to pride myself on doing 5 things at once: feeding the baby, replying to a text, prepping dinner, picking up toys, all while mentally preparing for tomorrow. But that way of living drained me. We don't even realize it half the time. So we began embracing intentionality and slow living, doing single tasking things as fully as I could. It felt unnatural at first, but it was life-giving and has easily become a lifestyle. I started setting tiny boundaries. For example, no major decisions when I was tired, no phone scrolling before prayer, one to-do list per day, written on paper, not in my head. And when I felt that mental clutter creep in again, I would just pause and remind myself, what matters most today? Not everything, just today. And something I've learned is that mental clutter isn't about tasks. It can be emotional clutter too: regrets, fears, what ifs, comparisons, shame. These things weigh us down in a way that's just as real as a cluttered closet. So part of the process is learning to hand those things over, to release the things that were never meant to be ours to carry in the first place. For me, that sometimes meant praying quietly right in the middle of the mess, right in the middle of a chaos, or just journaling in short moments between naps so that I can remember what it was that caused the overwhelm to begin with, because we have to get the root of it, right? It didn't have to be deep, just honest, just real. And sometimes I would just ask God to help me untangle what I was feeling, to help me know what I needed to focus on, not just what I thought I should focus on. Because when your mind is racing, it's hard to know what matters, and peace could just start to feel impossible. The truth is that decluttering your mind is a daily practice. You don't do it once and move on. It's something that we return to again and again, just like the laundry or the dishes. But each time you pause, you release, and you reset, you also create space for peace. Not just clarity, but for calm, for creativity, and for connection. So if your mind feels loud right now, start with a brain dump. Get you a journal, write it down, maybe even talk it out with someone. Breathe and just give yourself grace. Remember that you're not behind. You are just holding a lot, and it's okay to let some of it go. I encourage you to let some of it go. Next is the type of clutter that sneaks in quietly. Your phone, your screen, your inbox, your digital life. Most of us don't think of our devices as clutter, but the truth is the digital world can be just as overwhelming as a messy kitchen. For me, I didn't realize how much noise my phone was adding to my life until I started decluttering everything else. The moment the house was quiet, I would reach for it. If I had a second of stillness, I would scroll, and I didn't even know what I was looking for. But I know that all I found was more noise. The first thing I did in my digital declutter was turned off almost every single notification. Then if there was something that I was missing, something that I felt I needed, then I would go back and turn it on. Because a lot of those notifications, they're like automatically turned on, and we don't need most of them. No more notifications for every email, every text, every app update. It might sound small, but it changed how I felt every time I picked up my phone. I wasn't reacting all day, and I was in control again. Then I deleted apps I didn't need anymore, especially the ones that weren't adding value to my day. And some of them weren't like just bad, but they just weren't helping me live the kind of life that I wanted. I also rearranged my home screen so that I put the apps I actually use intentionally, like my calendar, my Bible app, on the first page. Everything else either went into folders or were removed altogether. When you open your phone and you only see what matters, it's like walking into a clean room. It sets the tone for the day. And then there was my camera roll. Thousands of photos, videos, screenshots of things that I never looked at again. I started deleting duplicates, blurry pictures, screenshots, even random downloads I didn't remember saving. That way I made room for just all of the fun pictures of my cute little babies. It's still a work in progress, but even clearing just one album at a time helped me feel a little bit lighter. The same went for my inbox. Hundreds of unread emails, most of them junk, subscriptions that I don't remember subscribing to. I spent 1 hour unsubscribing from anything that I didn't truly want. It took effort and time, but now I only get emails that feel worth opening. That alone made my mornings feel less scattered, and that's also a work in progress. So every once in a while, if I see like a text message or an email pop up in my inbox and it's from like a company or a website that I once purchased something from or browsed, I just go ahead and unsubscribe from it. Something else I started doing was having no phone hours. For me, it's early in the morning or evenings because I want to be present with my kids, not scrolling while they play just at my feet, but I want uninterrupted dinners and just time to get to know my family, to spend time with them, to have focused homeschool, focused prayers, devotions, things like that. And if I'm being honest, I realized I wasn't using my phone until I was bored. It's actually where creativity and peace can now begin to grow. So I'm not saying you have to quit social media or throw your phone in a drawer, because I still use mine every day. But now I use it on purpose and not by like default. I scroll with intention. I check in rather than check out. When I feel that anxious or rushed or even comparison fueled energy creeping in, I just pause, I log out, and I do something real. Go outside or do something around the house or with my family, my children, or go clean up my house. Yeah, it's become a thing, I know. So digital clutter isn't always obvious, but it builds up in quiet ways. And when we clear it out, we don't gain time, we gain clarity, focus, presence. You don't have to throw away technology to live a slow and intentional life, but you do have to tell it who's in charge. So start small, pick one category, notifications, apps, emails, photos, whichever, and just give it 10 minutes. Set a timer and remember that it's not about being perfect, just about being present, because your peace is always worth the effort. So now let's talk about our time and schedule, how we spend it, how it slips away, and how we can reclaim it. For many of us, our lives aren't just cluttered with things. They're cluttered with commitments, obligations, and expectations that can definitely leave us exhausted. Even when our homes are tidy, if our days are too full, peace can still feel out of reach. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. For a long time, I thought being busy meant that I was doing something right. I said yes to everything to keep people happy, to be helpful, to not miss out. But over time, I realized I was running through life instead of just living it. My days were packed, but they didn't feel purposeful. I was constantly rushing, feeling rushed. Sometimes I felt behind, sometimes I was tired, and sometimes I even felt like I was rushing my children as well. And the turning point for me came when I started to ask a simple question about my time. Does this bring us peace or pressure? And if something made me feel anxious or overwhelmed or too tired to be present with my children and family, or even resentful before I even began, that was a red flag. It didn't mean that I was lazy, but it did mean that I was overcommitted. And we ought to be honest with ourselves and our commitments, taking on only what we know we can truly commit to. So I started slowly decluttering my schedule. At first, it was small things like social events that I really didn't want to go to, extra activities that didn't align with our season, even group texts that drained me. And it wasn't easy because I was afraid that people would think I didn't care. But the truth is, I started showing up better where I could when I wasn't stretched so thin. I also began creating margins in our day, which is just like little pockets. I've talked about this a lot before on my channel, where you just leave space for little pockets of unplanned time. Instead of scheduling every moment from sunup to sundown with a full time clocked schedule, make space for rest, connection, or just nothing at all. And that white space in your week is where you're going to notice your kids the most. It's when you have the best talks, the best, most fun time, the most laughter, and the deepest peace. And leave some space for God to do what He wants to do in your life and in your schedule as well. One of the best things I did was create a gentle, predictable rhythm. And I'm not naturally a super structured person, but having a loose rhythm, not a strict schedule, helped us anchor our days, which is just like a consistent morning flow of how we want things to go. Morning prayer and quiet time, then breakfast, a short tidy, an afternoon pause after homeschool, lunch, books, maybe a walk, and then our evening rhythm or our evening reset, and then our bedtime routine. These rhythms gave our time structure without the pressure. And I also stopped multitasking as much as well as mentioned. I used to try to clean up, plan things, answer messages, parent, all at once. And now I try to be where I am. When I'm making dinner, I'm just making dinner. When I'm reading to my son, I am just reading, because I realized before I was moving so fast, I was missing the very moments that I said that I wanted to cherish. Another powerful shift was learning to say, not right now. Sometimes a good opportunity still isn't the right fit for your current season, and that is okay. You have to know this big one. Every yes needs to be measured against your family's peace, your margin, and your capacity, not someone else's. So if you're feeling like your life is constantly running ahead of you, start by looking at your schedule, not with guilt, but with curiosity. Where are you saying yes out of pressure? What can be released, delayed, or simplified? And what do you actually want more of in your days? Decluttering your time isn't about doing less just to do less. It's about clearing room to live on purpose, to create slower mornings, more presence, more joy, and more peace. You do not need to fill every space on your calendar. You just need to fill the ones that truly matter with the things that truly matter to you. Now let's talk about relationships. This is another hard one, but we are decluttering our whole entire life, right? So we have to talk about relationships. They're an important part of our life. So we're gonna gently step into this harder area, because the truth is that some of the heaviest clutter we carry isn't physical or digital, but emotional. It's the weight of strained friendships, unspoken expectations, people-pleasing habits, and guilt that keeps us tied to relationships that are not life-giving or season-serving anymore. I didn't expect this to be part of my decluttering journey, to be honest. I thought I was just going to clean out my house, but the more I simplified my home and my time, the more I started to see clearly which relationships were not adding peace either, and which one were just quietly adding stress. And let me just say that you can definitely love people deeply and still create space in those relationships. There were people in my life who constantly crossed boundaries, expected too much of me, or just made me feel used. And for so long, I just took it. I told myself that this is just how they are, or it's not that big of a deal. But the more margin I created in other areas, the more I realized how much emotional energy those relationships were draining as well. And some of that can creep into the family life as well. And that's like a non-negotiable. So setting boundaries wasn't easy for me. As a mom, as a woman, and as someone who didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings, I had to learn how to say no without over-explaining myself. I had to let go of the belief that being available equaled being kind. And honestly, I had to grieve some of the relationships that just did not grow with me. And yeah, it was hard. This part, like I said, it's not going to be easy. But sometimes decluttering relationships doesn't even mean cutting people out. It just means redefining the access that they have to you. Maybe you don't answer every text message right away. I literally have friends who text me at 6 in the morning and some who text me at 11:30 at night, and I love them, but I'm not going to respond to every text right away. So maybe you stop venting to someone who always makes you feel worse afterwards. Maybe you start spending more time with people who speak life into you and don't always have something negative to talk about. People who get your heart, people who get your current season of life, people who don't need you to perform. I also had to take responsibility for the clutter that I was bringing into relationships, like unrealistic expectations, trying to prove myself, or constantly feeling like I needed approval. I was letting fear guide a lot of my interactions, fear of being misunderstood, unliked, of disappointing someone. And decluttering those fears meant just being more honest, more myself, and more free. The most meaningful relationships in my life now are simple. We check in when we can, we offer grace for canceled plans, and we can show up with messy houses, messy buns, and tired hearts and still feel loved. And that's what I want more of. Not more friends or more connections, but deeper, more peaceful, and honest ones. If this part of the journey feels too painful for you, you are not alone. Letting go or shifting dynamics in relationships can definitely stir up grief, guilt, and doubt. But trust this, the healthiest relationships will survive your growth. They might even grow with you. And the ones that don't, you can just pray for them. So take a look at your circle. Who do you feel safe around? Who drains you? Who lifts you up? And who do you feel you're always trying to impress? You don't need to make any drastic decisions today, but pay attention to your relationship, because protecting your peace is not selfish. It's wise, not just for you, but also for your family and your children. And it makes space for the right people to be able to draw closer to you, because now you have more time in your schedule for those relationships as well. Now let's talk about the behind the scenes parts of a peaceful life, which is your routines and habits. Once you've decluttered the physical stuff like the digital noise and the unnecessary commitments, you're left with space. And how do you fill that space? So that's what we're talking about. This is where those rhythms come in. For a long time, I resisted routines. They just felt rigid, unrealistic, and hard to keep up with as a stay-at-home mom. And growing up as a kid, I didn't have a ton of structure, so this was never really natural for me. And what I wanted more than a strict schedule was freedom, not more rules. But over time, I realized that the right routines actually gave my family more freedom, because we weren't wasting energy on the same decisions every day. I knew what to expect, and I could move through my day a lot more calm and leave a lot more room for freedom. I didn't start with a fancy planner or a color-coded chart. I just started by watching what already worked. I noticed our mornings were smoother when I got up before the kids, even by just 15 minutes. So I tried to do this now, just waking up a little bit earlier than the kids. I noticed that the house felt more calmer when I didn't have to do a quick tidy in the afternoon before the dinner rush. I noticed that I felt better when I took 5 minutes at night to reset the kitchen and light a candle. Those are the things you want to just sit and watch and see what's working, and allow those to become your anchors. For me, my morning rhythm, afternoon reset, and evening wind down, I didn't time them. I didn't force them. I just gently let them shape our days, and slowly they are what became our rhythm. I was no longer reacting to every little mess, I was responding because I have built spaces in our time and in our days and in our schedule to breathe. So one great habit that I mentioned earlier is the evening reset. So I just want to extend the encouragement for you to try this too. After dinner, just take 10 to 15 minutes to load the dishwasher, clear off the plates, wipe down the counters, and just put things back in their place so that you can prep for the next day. This is just one of my favorite things to do. Sometimes my son will help me and sometimes he won't, but I've learned that a peaceful evening sets the tone for a peaceful morning, and there is nothing like waking up and walking into a tidy kitchen the next day. It just makes breakfast prep a little bit easier. Even my prayers feel a lot more quiet. My tea time just feels a lot more peaceful. Another helpful habit is getting fully ready in the morning. It sounds simple, but especially for stay-at-home moms, this can change everything. I'll just take a few minutes to wash my face with a gentle cleanser, get dressed, maybe even put on a little bit of mascara, lip balm. I feel more ready and more like myself. It's not about the appearances, but more so about how you feel and about starting your day with intention and not by accident. It's like controlling your day and not letting it control you. But let me just say that you don't need to overhaul your life overnight, because I know that this can all sound like a lot, but you don't need a strict routine with timers and alarms. You just need to ask yourself, what tiny habits would make my life feel a little bit easier, calmer, and more joyful? Start with just one. Make it stick, and then after it sticks, then you'll add another one. Not too many. That's typically where people go wrong. So if something isn't working anymore, just go ahead and let it go, because routines should serve you, not the other way around. And always remember that what works for my family or another family might not work for yours. Life changes. Seasons shift, and what worked last month might not work today, and that's okay. It's not failure, it's flexibility, and that's wisdom. So the beauty of small, consistent habits is that they quietly build a life of peace. You might not notice the change right away, but one day you are going to look up and realize that things just feel lighter. The laundry isn't piling up as fast. The meals are a little more planned. The kids seem calmer. And that's because it's all true. And most importantly, you're going to feel calmer too. So be gentle with yourself. You do not need a perfect routine, but you just want to give yourself a little more room to live, to breathe, and grow with your daily rhythms and routines. Again, not a structured schedule, but I do encourage a loose routine. What is all underneath this? Our hearts, right? No matter how organized our closets are or how clean the kitchen feels, if we're carrying heaviness on the inside, we're still gonna feel overwhelmed. And sometimes the deepest clutter is spiritual, emotional, invisible, and that's the kind that needs the most gentle attention. Slowing down and making space in my home definitely created room for me to be able to hear my own thoughts. And in those quiet moments, I realized how disconnected I had become from God, from peace, and even from myself. When life was loud and full and chaotic, I didn't even notice that I had stopped praying every single day. I would sometimes just miss a day. I wasn't opening my Bible as much, and I just didn't feel grounded and deeply rooted in God's faith. But as I began removing distractions and simplifying our days, I found those little moments again, those pockets of stillness where I could reconnect. A whispered prayer while folding laundry, a deep breath, and a verse written on just like a sticky note. I started putting prayer cards up around the house wherever I could, wherever they made sense. And that was just the beginning of coming back to the center where it all mattered. You don't need hours of quiet time to connect with God, although that would be wonderful. You don't need to have the perfect morning routine or journal every day, because I believe that God meets us right where we are, in the middle of motherhood, homemaking, in the middle of the noise, even in the exhaustion, especially in the exhaustion. And the more we slow down, the more we start to notice Him again. In the sunrise, in our children's laughter, in the grace that shows up when we are short-tempered and tired. For me, faith is the heart of why I chose to live slower. Faith, my children, my family, and my spouse. Not because I'm trying to earn peace, but because I believe we were created for it. We weren't made to be in this constant hustle, to say yes to everything, to live distracted and overstimulated. God does not want that for us. God calls us to rest, not just physical rest, but a life that reflects trust and not just productivity. One verse that kept coming to mind during this process was Matthew chapter 11, verse 28, which tells us, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." I held on to that because I was weary, and decluttering became a way to come home to that promise, to live in it and not just read it. This part of the journey also helped me to let go of emotional clutter, guilt, shame, fear of not being enough. I realized how many of my habits were rooted in trying to prove myself, even as a mom, and I was performing more than I was parenting. I wanted the house to look good, the kids to be perfect, the schedule to be full, because I thought that that's what a good life was supposed to look like. But God gently reminded me that I was never asked for that. He just wanted me to be present, honest, surrendered, and I realized that the most sacred moments in my day weren't always the quiet ones. They were actually the real ones, the tantrums, the prayers, the interruptions, the deep sighs at the end of the day. That's all the real stuff. That's all the stuff that matters, right? So if you're listening to this and you feel distant from your faith, then I just want you to know that you're not alone. I was there before too, and you don't have to fix everything. You don't have to declutter everything perfectly before you reach for peace. You can start with one breath, one honest prayer, and one moment of stillness. And that, honestly, it's enough. It's more than enough. So as you declutter your home, your time, and your habits, make space in your heart too. Do not rush through this season. Let it change you slowly. Sometimes the quietest shifts make the biggest impact. So if you've made it this far in the video, I want to thank you for spending this time with me. I hope that it's going to be helpful in helping you to declutter your entire life. I did it and it changed everything for me. Whether you're folding laundry, decluttering a drawer, or just listening while rocking a baby, I'm so glad that you're here, and I hope that this video felt like a breath of fresh air in the middle of your full and beautiful and sometimes overwhelming life. We have talked about decluttering your home, your mind, your digital life, your time, your relationships, your habits, even your heart, so much. And maybe you're realizing now, like I did, that decluttering isn't just about removing things. It's not. It's about revealing something better, a version of your life that feels lighter, calmer, clearer, and more aligned with who you really are and who God is. So I want you to know that this process doesn't have to be rushed. In fact, it should not be. It's not a 30-day challenge, although those are fun and those are beneficial too. This is not a one and done project. It's a lifestyle, a slow and unraveling process of the unnecessary and a returning to what matters most. So it happens one drawer and one boundary and one small yes or no at a time. There's no perfect way to do it. Some seasons will be slower than others, and some weeks you might declutter an entire closet, while others you might just be putting your phone down during dinner or choosing rest over another task. Both are progress and both are beautiful. They matter, and I applaud it. Again, when I started this journey, I just wanted the mess to go away. I was tired of cleaning up every second of every hour of every day. But what I found was so much more than a clean house. I found clarity, confidence, peace. I stopped living in reaction mode and I stopped saying yes to everything. I learned how to be in my home and not just managing it. And I started living life on purpose again. You do not have to wait until life calms down to start this process. You can begin right here in the middle of your messy season. I began mine 3 months postpartum and overwhelmed, emotionally drained, and honestly a little bit lost, but that's where the transformation truly started, in the middle, not the end. So what now? We start small. We choose one category or one room that feels manageable. Give yourself permission to let go without guilt. Make one small decision that supports peace, one drawer, one conversation, one phone boundary, one slow morning. And that is where the whole life decluttering begins. And while you're doing it, be kind to yourself. Don't measure your progress by someone else's timeline. Don't expect perfection. You're doing something brave and you're choosing simplicity in a world that truly glorifies hustle. you're creating a life that feels good on the inside, not just one that looks good from the outside. But most importantly, you're not doing it alone. I am on this journey too. I'm right there with you. I'm still learning, I'm still releasing, and still recentering, but I can tell you from experience that it is so worth it. So if this video spoke to you, I would love for you to let me know by giving this video a like or commenting down below where you are in your current decluttering journey, and subscribe if you are new here. I'm always sharing videos just like this on simple living, slow motherhood, decluttering, and finding peace in everyday life. If you know a friend who might need to hear this message, I hope that you would share it with them too. And let's just keep choosing less of what drains us and more of what fills us together. Thank you again for watching this video and being here. Remember, you do not have to do it all. Just start with one small thing, and that is more than enough.